بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم قفينا على آثارهم برسلنا وقفينا بعيسى ابن مريم وآتيناه الإنجيل وجعلنا في قلوب الذين اتبعوه رأفة ورحمة ورهبانية ابتدعوها ما كتبناها عليهم إلا ابتغاء رضوان الله فما رعوها حق رعايتها فآتينا الذين آمنوا منهم أجرهم وكثير منهم فاسقون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بجو. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you remember, verse number 26 that we recited yesterday also ended with the ending of kathirum minhum fasiqun. It was talking about that indeed we sent between you Nuh and Ibrahim alayhim salatu wassalam, and we appointed individuals in their progeny and their offspring as to be their heirs, and we sent books with them. Some of them among their progeny were muhtad, guided, rightly guided, and some of them were fasiqun. In this ayah also it says, then we followed them up with their apostles, and we followed them with Jesus, son of Mary. So after Hazrat Nuh and Ibrahim, Allah is giving more examples. First, in the ayah number 25, He said, we sent among the people our Rasul, our signs, our prophets. And then He gave two examples in the form of Hazrat Nuh and Hazrat Ibrahim. Now He's giving more examples. He says, then we followed them up, them, meaning Nuh and Ibrahim, with our apostles, and we followed them with Jesus, son of Mary, and we gave him the Injil, and we put kindness and mercy into the hearts of those who followed him. But as for the monasticism, the rahbaniyat, which is being discussed here, it says they innovated it. It was a bid'ah that was started by these people. We had not prescribed it for them, only seeking Allah's pleasure, yet they did not observe it with due observance. They did not follow it the way it should have been followed. So we gave it to the faithful among them, their due reward, but many of them are transgressors. The first thing that is worth mentioning over here among the points is the concept of rahbaniyat, which is being mentioned over here. It says that these people, rahbaniyatan ibtada'uha, that they went towards rahbaniyat. Rahbaniyat is referred to as monasticism. That means when a person puts himself into seclusion, when a person leaves tarkud dunya, for example, when a person leaves the world and its luxuries, you say, well, it's a good thing, but leaves it to go in rahbaniyat, in seclusion, in inziva, to be cut off from the whole world. And then obviously spend the time in worshipping Allah, spend the time devoting towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Insan is a social animal. Allah wants you to attain the virtues while living among the people and not secluding yourself from the society. Yes, secluding yourself from the society, you're depriving them of your needs, you could have been used to them, and so on and so forth. So there are many reasons why this seclusion or this inziva is something which is disliked. Yeah, if you do it for time being, then there's nothing wrong with it. And if you do it with the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you invent something like this and you innovate and you do bid'at in this regards, then it is something which is displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So rahbaniyat comes from the root rahba, in the meaning of fear and humility. It is referred to those who because of fear of Allah go into seclusion away from people to worship Allah. Although Ruhbaniyat was not made obligatory by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the followers of Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, rather they made it wajib upon themselves. They said, oh, we're going to go ahead and do this. So they made it wajib upon their own souls. But if you do something, you made it wajib upon yourself, and I will give a few examples, you still got to follow the commands. You still got to follow the limits of it. It said, but they failed to do it properly. They weren't able to perform it the way it should have been performed. First of all, they invented it. They innovated it. It was a practice which was done before. It was a practice which was no longer asked by the people of Hazrat Isa. But they went ahead and did it anyway. They said, we want to do it. So now when you go ahead and do it, make sure that you do it properly. They not only went ahead and did it themselves, innovated it, but they also failed to do it the way it should have been done. Kind of like the mustahab fasts or the mustahab prayers that, sometimes we make nadhr, that if so-and-so happens, such a certain thing happens, I will go ahead and fast for 3 days. Now when you make such a nadhr, what happens? It becomes wajib. It's a mustahab fast. You're fasting outside of Ramadan, it's a mustahab fast. Aside from the qadha, that is also wajib. But when you make this niyat that if something, so-and-so thing happens for me, if I pass, for example, if I get this deal, I will fast for 3 days. Then it becomes wajib. Now when it becomes wajib, you say, well, it's not the month of, and a time to come to go ahead and pay or to go ahead and fast, make up these fasts when the time comes. So for example, you said, if I pass next week, right after that, I'll fast for 3 days. You say, I'll start fasting from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But when it comes Saturday, because you're feeling something, you say, I don't feel like fasting, I'll fast tomorrow. Or you started fasting, but you felt that, there was a need of eating or there was something that was going on. It's like, okay, I'll break the fast. Because it is something which is outside of Ramadan, you go ahead and do this. Even then it is not allowed. Why? Because you have made a nadhr. When you make a nadhr, it becomes wajib upon you. The same thing these people, kind of like the example of these rahbaniya, that these monasticism, what these guys were doing, they were practicing something which was no longer wajib upon them. But now when they were doing it, they were not doing it properly. Because of this, they're doing it improperly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is scolding them over here. We see the example that if it is done properly, although it is not asked by you, but if it is done properly, then Allah appreciates it. The example over here of the example of Ashabul Kahf. In order to protect their deen, they went into seclusion. They said, we'll stay away from the society and the evilness that exists in the society, we'll seclude ourselves. So they went into hiding in this cave. Because they did it for a sound reason, for a reason to protect themselves and their religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciated it. There's a whole chapter and talks about their efforts, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commending them. So we see whenever it is done nicely and properly, Allah appreciates it. Whenever it is done improperly, obviously you will be scolded. Bid'at means innovation. In the affairs pertaining to education, production, innovation is appreciated. When a person brings out a new method of understanding, new method of teaching, new method of remembering, for example, these innovations are a good thing. Person produces different theories, different ways of treating, for example, in the medicine, in the medical science, these innovations are appreciated. But when there are innovations in affairs pertaining to religion, which bases on the laws set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, introducing any new belief or personal taste or elegance is considered to be bid'at and not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we see that Islam is not definitely against bid'at of all kinds. It says, go ahead and innovate in relations to affairs, for example, education and other things. But when it comes to religion, no, don't try to innovate things in it. Why? Because the basis of religion is by the divine authority, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who set the basis for that. To go ahead and change in these things, in these matters, you're actually questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore it is something which is disliked. God likes those who perform actions completely. Therefore, if someone leaves an act incomplete, God admonishes them and says, فَمَا رَعَوْهَا حَقَّ رِعَايَتِهَا. They did not observe it with due observance. Like the kind of the people of Hazrat Isa, the disciples or the followers of Hazrat Isa, when they went into this rahbaniyah, this seclusion, they did not perform it properly. Likewise, God has recommended the believers to observe taqwa and jihad in due observance. Elsewhere in the Quran we see ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. And then the same way it says haqqa jihadihi. Perform jihad the way Allah wants you to perform, the way it is due, or observe it in due observance. Do not leave it incomplete. Do not do it halfway. ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. Perform the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have piety in all matters, not only in a few matters. There's okay, no, I'll show taqwa here, but I won't be showing taqwa in these other areas. I'll do jihad here and there, but I won't do jihad where Prophet is asking me to go. And that was the reason that Prophet scolded so many people when he was asking them to, Quran says, Harrad al-mu'minin, get these people to follow you in jihad when they were going towards Tabuk. It's a long distance, all the way close to present-day Syria, present-day Sham. And it's quite a distance from Hijaz, from where Prophet was. So it was during summertime. Prophet is asking all of these people to get ready. We got to go for jihad. A lot of them are saying, it's the time for harvest. It's the time, our crops will be ready. So, if we leave now, no one will be able to take care of them. And, if anyone does take care of them, it will not be done properly. So they were started making excuses to Rasulullah. Where Islam is already, has won so many wars. Now there's really no need for all of the people to go. So, if a few of us don't go, 30,000 men were going. So if a few of us don't go, then Prophet won't really notice. Or it will not really be missed. We won't really be missed. Some of them actually said, we'll join you after we have taken care of some of the stuff that we are doing right now. So they were willing to join, but some of them were actually staying back. Some of them were making excuses not to go altogether. Right away, Quran comes and scolds these people. Even when Prophet came back, he punished them in a severe punishment. So there are other punishments in this regard. So ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. When you want to perform jihad, do it the way the Prophet is asking you to do so. Ruhbaniyat in Islam. That's this being discussed in this particular verse of Surah Hadid. Quran has denounced seclusion and abstention from the world on many occasions. For example, addressed to the Prophet in Surah Tahrim, it says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu lak. O Prophet, why do you disallow yourself what Allah has made lawful to you? So don't make it haram upon you. If it's only allowed for you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't go on. And you can go ahead and read the next couple of verses of Surah Tahrim, verse number 2, verse number 3. You see who are being referred to in these ayat. That who was stopping Prophet from doing such an act. That Prophet being a Nabi, Prophet being a Rasul, he's abstaining from certain things due to certain individuals. Second, we see example in Surah Araf 32. It says, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ. Say, who has forbidden the adornment of Allah, which Allah has brought forth for His servants, and the good things for His provision? Who has made it haram? Don't make it haram unto you. If it is halal by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will remain halal. We see in Surah Ma'idah 87, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, la tuharrimu tayyibati ma ahallallahu lakum, wa la ta'tadu, inna Allaha la yuhibbul mu'tadeen. O you who have faith, do not prohibit the good things that Allah has made lawful to you, and do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like the transgressors. We see these three examples over here are where people are abstaining from the worldly goods. People are putting themselves in abstention. Allah comes down and specifically orders them, commands them. All of them are commanding. La tuharrim. Man harrama. La tuharrimu. All of them, two of them are actually commands by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not do this. No, it is already halal for you. Do not make it haram upon yourself. We see in the history that there were some people who took an oath that they won't have carnal relations with their spouses and will remain in the state of fasting all year long and spend nights in worshipping Allah. Prophet called these people, in the time of Rasulullah, Prophet called these people to masjid. And then he said, I do nikah, I have gotten married, and I sleep at night. So whoever steers away from my sunnah, it is not from me. Not go ahead and tell them, oh, don't do this much, or whatnot. Very simply, he said, look, you want my sunnah? I have gotten married. You are abstaining from getting married. You want to follow my sunnah? I sleep at night, majority of the time. Sometimes I'm up performing ibadat. Even then, Allah is saying, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا نِصْفَهُ, or so on and so forth. Even little bit, Allah is saying, don't spend all nights performing worship. So I pray, but a little bit. I spend nights in ibadat, but a little bit. I get married. Whoever does not do these things is not following my sunnah. And if you don't follow the sunnah of Rasulullah, he said, Laysa minni. That person is not from me. He does not belong to me. He cannot associate myself to me. So look at the way Prophet is addressing people who are abstaining from the goods that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for them. Son of Uthman ibn Maz'un, died, his father went into seclusion. Upon hearing this, Prophet called him and he said to him, فقال يا عثمان بن مظعون إن الله لم يكتب علينا الرهبانية إنما رحمانية أمتي الجهاد في سبيل الله. He said, Allah has not prescribed rahbaniyat upon us. Rahbaniyat of my people is jihad in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do not go into the seclusion. Yes, Allah has taken your son away. May Allah give you sabr and whatnot. But don't go into seclusion. Don't go into inziva. Don't go put yourself in a situation where people call you tariqud dunya. Once Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam went to see a person by the name Ala ibn Ziyad, and who had fallen sick. So Imam went for his iyadat, as was Imam's custom was, to whoever would fall sick, Imam would go for their iyadat. When he entered his house, he said to him, and this is in Nahjul Balagha, he said, what will you do with this vast house in this world? He had a huge house. This person, Ala ibn Ziyad, had a huge house. He said, what will you do with this vast house in this world? Although you need this house more in the next world, if you want to take it to the next world, you could entertain in it guests, and be regardful to kinship and discharge all your obligations according to their accrual. And in this way, you'll be able to take it to the next world. So Imam initially went ahead and said, what do you need this big house for? And then he said, well, by keeping this big house, which you mostly need in the hereafter, what you can do, you can entertain guests, you can invite your relatives, you can do sila rahim, you can be hospitable towards them, and that will be the means of utilizing this big house towards making a big house in the hereafter. So there's a catch over here. This actually, Imam is telling us, or telling all of those people who have big houses, to invite others to their house, to invite them for dinner, to invite them for lunch, to invite them for food, to be hospitable towards them. Having guests in this house and taking care of them, especially sila rahim, helping those who are your family members and kinship, that is something which will make a same sort of house for you in the hereafter. Imam said, so Imam initially went ahead and said, what do you need this big house? Then he said, you could have this house if you were using it in this fashion, so that you would really need it in the hereafter more than you need it over here. Then Allah said to him, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, I want to complain to you about my brother, Asim ibn Ziyad. Imam inquired, what is the matter with him? He said, he's put in a woolen coat upon him and cut himself away from the world. He's gone into seclusion. Imam said, bring him to him. When he came, this is how Imam spoke to him. And again, this is in Nahjul Balagha. He says, O enemy of yourself, certainly the evil has misguided you. Shaitan has misguided you. Do you feel no pity for your wife and your children? Do you believe that if you use those things which Allah has made lawful for you, He will dislike you? You are too unimportant for Allah to do so. This is again words coming from Nahjul Balagha. How Imam is scolding a brother who has put himself into seclusion, whereas in the eyes of the world, the one who had the big house would be scolded, and the one who has gone into seclusion would be praised by the people, saying, look how ascetic this person is, how zahid this person is, who has cut himself off this world. And on the other hand, look at the brother who's enjoying all the lavishness and the luxuries of the house. Imam said, no, keep a balance between the two. Don't cut yourself off completely. Why? The one who has cut himself off completely, Imam said, you've been misguided by a shaitan. But when the one who had the bigger house, Imam said, use it for your benefit by inviting people over and doing sila rahim for the hereafter. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Going back to these ayat of Surah Hadid, the word Injil has appeared in singular form, which indicates that there was only one scripture. So why are there so many Anajil today? I don't know. The sign of followers of Prophet Isa alayhi salam is kindness and mercy. Ittabi'u ra'fatan wa rahmatan. But the signs of the followers of Rasulullah is to be hard against the faithless, but merciful amongst themselves. وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ وَرُحَمَاهُ بَيْنَهُم. So they're shadid, where they're hard upon those who are faithless, but when it comes to those who are faithful, they are rahim towards them. The word Ra'uf and Rahim has appeared in Quran 10 times together. You will see the composition of Ra'uf and Rahim together 10 times in Quran. Ra'uf means feeling pain to relieve difficulty And Rahim means love and compassion after the difficulty has been relieved. So that is the connection between the two words, Ra'uf and Rahim. Ra'afat is in relation to relieving evil, whereas Rahmat is in relation to attracting good. So when you want to deter or remove evil, that is the Ra'afat. But when you want to attract the mercy and the love, that is when you use the Rahim. Messages from this verse is, in the long history of humans, prophets have come one after another. So many prophets Allah has sent. If that is not alone itself a reason for a person to follow the commands, then what would be? If you say, well, only 10 of them came, only 50 of them came, only 100 prophets came in the last 8,000 years of human history. Okay, that's fine. 100, it's not a big number. 124,000 with numerous scriptures, Suhuf Ibrahim, Suhuf Musa, and so on and so forth. Numerous scriptures, all inviting towards one God. What is there to not believe in now anymore? But so many people have come. If a person comes in running over here, there's a fire, you'll believe him first time. But you say, well, this person's not really credible. Another person came running, third person came running, fourth person came running. Now it will be established for you that there's a fire. You'll run for safety right away. After first, second, and third, it becomes confirmed that there's no doubt that there's a fire because so many people have confirmed the news. Not one, not 224,000 prophets come, all of them saying, believe in one God, follow one God, monotheism, and I'm the messenger. What is the reason now for you to stay away from believing? Why there are still people who don't believe in the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That is still a history. So we see that in the long history of humans, prophets have come one after another. Therefore, it is continuous process. فَقَفَّيْنَا عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ after one after another. One must remember the prophets with glory and mention their names and these people and their people as well. Not just the prophets. So Allah is mentioning Nuh, Hazrat Ibrahim, Hazrat Isa with glory. And then, not only just them, but he's also mentioning their ummat as well. What is it? وَجَعَلْنَا فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ اتَّبِعُوا رَأْفَةً وَرَحْمَةً. Not just the prophets were glorified, but even their ummat, who came with them, who followed them, who truly believed in them, we put in their hearts, what? Ra'afat and rahmat. They were merciful and they were kind. Following prophets is a sign of clean heart and kindness. It says, ittabi'u ra'afatan wa rahmatan. When you follow, you have developed this ra'afat and you have developed this rahmat. One must remove the obstacles which cause disunity, ra'afat, as well as increase the elements of love, rahmat. Innovations and new methods of doing things in religion is not accepted by Allah. Rahbaniyatan ibtada'uha ma katabnaha alayhim. These innovations that they have innovated, we did not write them upon them. We did not prescribe it for them. They have gone ahead and done themselves. So it is not up to us. Again, I'll mention it again. Ibtada'uha, this bid'at in relation to affairs of the worldly affairs is something which is appreciated. Why? Because there's no basis of divine as far as the worldly affairs are concerned. But as far as religious affairs are concerned, one cannot do bid'at. Why? The basis of the religious affairs is the divine scripture or the divine knowledge. So when you introduce something in the religious aspect, you're questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last 2 points, inshallah, we'll end with that. Sometimes introducing things with good intentions and sincerity ends up being khurafat and bid'at. And if they're not in the path of the divine laws, it's a rahbaniyatan ibtada'uha ibtagha'a ridwanillah. As long as, even if you're doing it sincerely, even if you're doing it with clean heart, although it is not in line with the divine laws, then it is something which is considered to be a bid'at. Kufr and fisq, which are used over here, are very close to one another. So kufr is when a person does not believe. Fisq is when a person openly does something haram, openly does commit sins. Not necessarily that person is a kafir because he's openly doing something haram. He's a fasiq, but he's not really a kafir. So there's a difference between the two. But Allah is using both of them. Why? Because there's a closeness between the two. Why they're close? In this verse, fisq is mentioned as the opposite of iman, whereas kufr should have been used. Allah said, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. He should have said, كَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ كَافِرُونَ. Those who have believed, but majority of them are kafir. Instead, he said majority of them are fasiq. So we got to be careful as far as sometimes the word fisq is also referring towards kufr. Let us ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq to be able to follow the teachings and the commands in these verses of Quran, and also to be able to follow the commands of Ma'asumeen alayhi salatu wasalam. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.